I watched my husband poison my soup. Not later. Not by accident. Not something I figured out years afterward. I watched his fingers open over my bowl. I watched something fall into my dinner. And then I spent the next several hours pretending I didn't know he was trying to kill me. What he didn't know was that before the night ended, someone else would eat that soup, and his entire life would begin to collapse. Before we get into today's story, if you enjoy real-life revenge stories filled with betrayal, shocking twists, and justice finally catching up with the people who think they're untouchable, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Now let's get into it. Because this is the story of how I discovered my husband was poisoning me, and how one tiny decision saved my life. My name is Bryn Caldwell. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my life, I believed I was a good judge of character. I wasn't naive. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't the kind of woman who ignored red flags. At least that's what I used to tell myself. Then I married Ryan, and that belief died. The scary thing is that if you had met Ryan, you would have liked him. Everybody liked him. He was the kind of man who held doors open. The kind who remembered birthdays. The kind who brought flowers to his mother on random Tuesdays. He smiled easily. He spoke softly. He never raised his voice. He looked like safety. Looking back now, that's what terrifies me the most. The people who truly want to hurt you rarely look dangerous. They look trustworthy. That's how they get close enough. Ryan and I met when I was 24. I was working at a marketing agency. He worked in finance. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop party downtown. I remember exactly what he said when we first talked. "You look like you're trying to figure out how to escape." I laughed. Because I was. The party was loud, crowded, filled with people trying too hard to impress each other. Ryan felt different. Or at least he seemed different. We talked for 3 hours. About movies, travel, family, dreams, the future. All the things people talk about when they're trying to build a connection. And somehow, by the end of the night, it felt easy. Natural. Like we'd known each other longer than a few hours. The relationship moved quickly. Maybe too quickly. But when you're happy, warnings sound a lot like doubts. And nobody wants doubts. Within a year, we were engaged. A year after that, married. And for a while, life was genuinely good. Or at least I thought it was. We bought a small house. Nothing extravagant. A quiet neighborhood. Tree-lined streets. Friendly neighbors. The kind of place where people waved when they walked their dogs. Ryan talked constantly about the future. Kids. Vacations. Retirement. Growing old together. I believed every word. Because why wouldn't I? The man I married seemed devoted. Loving. Reliable. If there were cracks, they were small enough to ignore. At first. Then little things started happening. Not dramatic things. Subtle things. The kind of details that don't trigger alarm bells until much later. Ryan became secretive with his phone. He started taking calls in another room. He changed passwords. Turned screens away. Closed laptops when I walked into the room. When I asked about it, he'd laugh. Work stuff. That was always the answer. Work stuff. Stress. Deadlines. Clients. Meetings. Excuses. Reasonable excuses. The best lies usually are. I wanted to trust him. So I did. Then came the late nights. The overnight business trips. The strange mood swings. One day, affectionate. The next, distant. Like a light switch flipping on and off. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 in the morning and find his side of the bed empty. I'd walk downstairs. The house dark and silent. And discover him sitting alone in the kitchen. Staring into space. Not drinking. Not working. Just sitting there. Thinking. The first time it happened, I asked if he was okay. He smiled. Said he couldn't sleep. The second time. Same answer. The third time. He got irritated. And somehow I ended up apologizing. Funny how manipulators do that. They turn your concern into guilt, your questions into problems, your instincts into flaws. So, eventually, I stopped asking. Then I started getting sick. At first it was headaches. Nothing severe. Just enough to notice. A dull pressure behind my eyes. The kind that lingers all day. Then dizziness. Fatigue. Nausea. Brain fog. I blamed work. Everybody blames stress. Stress is the perfect explanation because it explains everything and nothing at the same time. My doctor agreed. Blood work looked mostly normal. Nothing alarming. Probably exhaustion, she said. Try to rest more. So I did. And somehow I felt worse. Weeks passed. Then months. The symptoms came and went. Never severe enough for an emergency. Never obvious enough to connect. Just enough to slowly wear me down. Looking back now, I know why. Looking back now, I know what was happening. But at the time, I thought my body was failing me. I had no idea the person causing it slept beside me every night. The first truly strange moment happened about 3 months before the dinner. I came home early from work. Ryan didn't know. I walked into the kitchen and found him standing at the counter, startled, like I'd caught him doing something. He dropped whatever was in his hand so quickly I barely saw it. A small white object. Maybe a pill. Maybe not. You're home early. His smile looked forced. Meeting got cancelled. He laughed nervously, then immediately changed the subject. At the time, I let it go. Now I wish I hadn't. Because that wasn't the first clue. It was the warning. The universe practically screaming at me. And I ignored it. Because the hardest truth in the world is this. When someone you love becomes dangerous, your brain fights reality. It doesn't want to believe it. It creates excuses. Alternative explanations. Anything but the truth. Because the truth hurts too much. And mine was waiting for me. At a Sunday family dinner. In a bowl of chicken noodle soup. The dinner started like every other family gathering. Warm lights. Laughter. The smell of fresh food. Kids running through the house. Normal. Comfortable. Safe. At least it appeared that way. Ryan's mother had been cooking all afternoon. She loved hosting. Loved feeding people. Loved creating those picture-perfect family moments. Everyone was there. Ryan's parents. His sister Michelle. Her husband. Their children. The whole family. And me. The future murder victim sitting at the table. Completely unaware. Until one moment changed everything. One tiny movement. One glance. 1 second. That was all it took. I was reaching for my water when I saw it. Ryan's hand hovering over my soup. His fingers opening. Something dropping. Something small. Something deliberate. And then, he turned away. Continued his conversation. Like nothing happened. Like he hadn't just changed my life forever. My blood turned to ice. I froze. The room kept moving around me. People talking. Laughing. Eating. Living. And I couldn't hear any of it. Because one thought had taken over my mind. My husband just put something in my food. I stared at the soup. The steam rising slowly. The noodles floating near the surface. Nothing looked different. Nothing looked wrong. But I knew what I saw. And suddenly, every strange moment from the past 6 months came rushing back. The headaches. The dizziness. The fatigue. The secretive behavior. The lies. The late nights. Everything. Every puzzle piece snapped together. And for the first time, I saw the picture. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't overworked. I was being poisoned. By the man sitting 3 feet away from me. Smiling. Waiting. Watching. Waiting for me to take the first bite. And as I lifted my spoon, a terrifying realization hit me. If I reacted the wrong way, I might not survive the night. The spoon felt impossibly heavy in my hand. I remember staring at the broth as steam drifted upward between me and Ryan. For a split second, I considered standing up and screaming. I imagined pointing directly at him, telling everyone what I'd seen, demanding answers, demanding the police, demanding justice. But another voice inside me stopped that impulse cold. What if you're wrong? The question hit hard, because accusing someone of attempted murder wasn't something you could take back. And Ryan knew that. People like Ryan survive because they understand doubt. They count on it. They hide inside it. I looked around the table. His father was talking about golf. Michelle was helping her youngest daughter open a juice box. His mother was smiling while discussing dessert. Nobody saw a danger. Nobody saw what I'd seen. To them, Ryan was still Ryan. The perfect son. The perfect husband. The dependable family man. And if I suddenly stood up accusing him of poisoning me, who would they believe? The frightened woman with no proof? Or the man everyone adored? My heart pounded harder. No, I needed evidence. Real evidence. Evidence that couldn't be explained away. Evidence that couldn't be ignored. So I forced a smile, just letting it cool off. Ryan's eyes stayed on me, watching, waiting, calculating. The look lasted only a second, but it chilled me, because there was expectation in his face. Not concern. Expectation. Like a gambler watching roulette spin, waiting for the ball to land. Then I excused myself and walked to the bathroom. The moment the door locked behind me, my composure shattered. My hands started shaking. My knees felt weak. I leaned over the sink and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back seemed like a stranger. Pale. Scared. Confused. I splashed cold water on my face. My breathing came fast and shallow. Think. 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 The words repeated over and over. Because panic wasn't going to save me. I needed a plan. And fast. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over 911. Then stopped. What exactly would I tell them? My husband dropped something into my soup? What something? I didn't know. Did I have proof? No. Did I have a witness? No. Could I even identify what he dropped? No. The operator would tell me the same thing. Without evidence, there wasn't much they could do. And if the police showed up, Ryan would know immediately. Whatever game he was playing would disappear. The evidence would disappear. Everything would disappear. No. I needed to stay calm. I needed to survive long enough to understand what was happening. I stared into the mirror. Then I said something I'll never forget. Don't let him know you know. The moment those words left my mouth, something changed inside me. The fear didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling me. I wasn't prey anymore. Not entirely. I was hunting too. I just had less information. When I returned to the dining room, everyone was laughing about something Michelle's son had done at school. The normalcy felt surreal. Like I had stepped into an alternate reality. My husband had potentially poisoned me. And everyone was discussing soccer practice. Ryan glanced up. His gaze immediately landed on the bowl. Then on me. I noticed because I was watching for it now. Watching him. Studying him. Every movement. Every expression. Every twitch. And then fate handed me an opportunity. A tiny opening. Small enough most people would have missed it. But I didn't. His mother stood up to check on the pie. Michelle turned toward her children. Ryan looked down at his phone. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. That's all I had. My body moved before my brain fully caught up. I switched the bowls. Quick. Clean. Natural. Years of office meetings had taught me how to move casually under pressure. The bowls traded places. And suddenly, the poisoned soup wasn't mine anymore. It sat in front of his mother. The woman who had raised him. The woman who loved him. The woman who thought her son could do no wrong. I immediately hated myself. Because if I was wrong, if this was all some misunderstanding, then I had just endangered an innocent person. But if I was right, then I was about to learn something important. Ryan looked up, saw me take a bite. His shoulders relaxed. Just slightly. Most people would have missed it. I didn't. Because I was looking for confirmation. And there it was. A tiny crack in the mask. The first one. Then his mother returned. She sat down. Reached for the bowl. The wrong bowl. Ryan's eyes widened. The change was instant. His face lost color. His entire body stiffened. "Mom, wait." The words escaped him before he could stop them. But she was already eating. I watched absolute panic flash across his face. Not concern. Not confusion. Panic. The reaction of a man watching a disaster unfold. The disaster being that his intended victim wasn't the one consuming the poison. His mother looked confused. Wait for what? Ryan recovered quickly. Too quickly. Save room for dessert. His smile looked painful. Forced. Artificial. The room continued talking. Nobody noticed. Nobody except me. And suddenly I knew. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The next few minutes felt endless. Every second stretched. Every movement felt amplified. Ryan kept watching his mother. His leg bounced beneath the table. His hands wouldn't stay still. His breathing looked shallow. The mask was cracking. Minute by minute. Then she coughed. Just once. A simple cough. But Ryan reacted like a gunshot had gone off. I saw it. The fear. Raw and immediate. His mother brushed it off. Everybody else brushed it off. But Ryan didn't. Because Ryan knew something nobody else knew. The poison was working. 5 minutes later, she looked pale. 6 minutes later, she complained of feeling strange. 7 minutes later, she couldn't stand. And when she collapsed, everything exploded. Screaming. Panic. Chaos. The children crying. Michelle shouting. His father calling emergency services. Paramedics rushing through the front door. The scene felt unreal. Like watching a movie through glass. And in the middle of it all stood Ryan. Frozen. Terrified. Not because his mother was dying. Because he knew exactly why she was dying. That realization settled into me like concrete. There was no doubt anymore. No uncertainty. No alternate explanation. My husband had attempted murder. And accidentally poisoned his own mother. The ambulance took her away. Ryan rode with her. His father followed. The house became strangely quiet afterward. Michelle sat crying at the kitchen table. The children had finally stopped screaming. I put an arm around her. Comforted her. Said all the things people say during emergencies. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. Evidence. I needed evidence. Because if Ryan survived this situation, he'd become even more dangerous. Cornered animals always are. The soup bowls still sat on the table. Waiting. Nobody else cared about them. But I did. Because those bowls might contain the only physical proof left in existence. I convinced Michelle to take the kids upstairs. Then I moved quickly. Plastic bags. Containers. Gloves. Anything I could find. Every action felt surreal. Like I was playing a role in somebody else's life. I carefully collected the remaining soup. Sealed it. Bagged the bowls. Bagged the spoons. Documented everything. Every movement. Every container. Every piece of evidence. Because I suddenly understood something. If Ryan had been poisoning me before tonight, then tonight wasn't the beginning. It was the final stage. Which meant the truth stretched much farther back than one dinner. Farther than one bowl of soup. Farther than one terrible decision. And if I wanted justice, I needed to uncover all of it. Not just what happened tonight. The entire story. Every lie. Every secret. Every betrayal. By the time I finished collecting everything, my hands were trembling again. Not from fear. From realization. The man I loved didn't exist. Maybe he never had. Maybe the Ryan I married was a mask. A carefully constructed performance. A character. A role. And now the actor was slipping, revealing what had been underneath all along. My phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. They're running tests. Possible cardiac event. I stared at the screen. The lie came so naturally to him. Even now. Even after watching his mother collapse. He was still pretending. Still performing. Still manipulating. Then another message arrived. Stay there. I'll call soon. I read it 3 times. A chill ran down my spine. Because suddenly that sentence felt threatening. Not caring. Not loving. Threatening. Stay there. Wait. Don't move. Don't do anything unexpected. For the first time since the dinner started, I wondered whether Ryan suspected me. Whether he knew I had switched the bowls. Whether he knew I knew. And if he did, what would he do next? That question followed me through the rest of the night. Through every conversation. Every minute. Every hour. It followed me all the way until 3 o'clock in the morning, when Ryan finally walked through our front door. And the moment I saw his face, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't done. Not even close. At exactly 3 in the morning, I heard Ryan's key slide into the front door. The sound echoed through the silent house. For years, that noise had meant comfort. Safety. Home. Now it felt like the arrival of a predator. I was sitting alone in the living room. Every light off except a small lamp beside the couch. The soft yellow glow cast long shadows across the walls. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his hand hovering over my soup. I saw his fingers open. I saw his mother's body collapsing. And worst of all, I saw the cold look in his eyes when he thought I was about to eat it. The door opened. Ryan stepped inside. His shoulders sagged. His tie hung loose around his neck. His hair was messy. His face looked exhausted. To anyone else, he appeared devastated. A worried son returning from the hospital. But now I saw something different. Performance. Every expression. Every sigh. Every carefully chosen word. It was all part of the act. "Hey," he said quietly. I looked up. "How is she?" He dropped onto the couch beside me. For a second, he covered his face with both hands. "Stable." A long pause. "They're keeping her overnight." I nodded. "No emotion. No accusation. Nothing." I wanted him comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. "What happened?" I asked. Ryan shook his head. "The doctors don't know." Lie. "They think it might be her heart." Lie. "Maybe a reaction to medication." Another lie. I studied him carefully. There were dark circles beneath his eyes. But they weren't the eyes of a grieving son. They were the eyes of a man calculating damage. Assessing risk. Trying to determine how much trouble he was in. Then something unexpected happened. Ryan reached over and grabbed my hand. The contact almost made me flinch. Seeing my mom tonight. He swallowed. It changed something. I stayed silent. "What?" He looked down. "I haven't been honest with you." My pulse quickened. Here it comes. The confession. Or part of it. But not the confession I expected. "I've been having money problems." I blinked. "Money?" Ryan exhaled slowly. "A lot of money problems." The room felt colder. "How much?" His answer came quietly. 200,000. For a moment, even I forgot about the poisoning. $200,000. The number hit like a punch. That wasn't a setback. That wasn't bad budgeting. That was catastrophe. How? Ryan stared at the floor. Investments. Bad ones. The explanation sounded rehearsed. Prepared. Like he'd practiced it. I listened carefully. He described failed opportunities. Market losses. Poor decisions. The story sounded believable. Almost too believable. When liars prepare excuses, they often add extra details. Not because details make stories true. Because details make stories feel true. By the time he finished, I understood one thing. Whether the story was accurate or not, Ryan was drowning. Financially. Emotionally. Desperately. And desperate people do dangerous things. Then another memory surfaced. A memory I'd completely forgotten. 6 months earlier. The life insurance policy. I felt my stomach tighten. Ryan had insisted we both get coverage. He called it responsible planning. Smart adult behavior. Protection. Security. The future. I remembered signing paperwork at our dining room table. Barely reading it. Trusting him completely. Because why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Now that memory felt poisonous. I forced myself to stay calm. 200,000 is a lot. Ryan nodded. I know. We'll figure it out. He squeezed my hand. The irony almost made me laugh. The man trying to murder me was asking for partnership. Support. Teamwork. I looked directly into his eyes. We'll get through it. His shoulders relaxed. And in that moment I knew something important. He didn't think I suspected him. Not yet. That gave me an advantage. And I intended to use it. The next morning, Ryan left for the hospital before sunrise. The second his car disappeared down the street, I moved. Fast. No hesitation. No guilt. No second thoughts. I went straight to his office. The room smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. A normal room. A normal workspace. Yet suddenly it felt sinister. Like every object was hiding secrets. I started opening drawers. Searching cabinets. Checking folders. Anything. Everything. The first 30 minutes revealed nothing. Bills. Tax documents. Work reports. Ordinary paperwork. Then I found the safe. Small. Hidden behind hanging files. Locked. But Ryan had always been predictable. People who think they're smarter than everyone else often become careless. After several guesses, I entered his mother's birthday. The safe opened. My heart nearly stopped. Inside sat stacks of documents. Loan records. Debt notices. Collection letters. Threats. Actual threats. My hands shook as I read them. One letter warned legal action. Another threatened wage garnishment. A third demanded immediate payment. The numbers were staggering. Far worse than 200,000. Ryan wasn't struggling. He was drowning. Then I found the insurance policy. My insurance policy. I sat down slowly. Read every page. Every clause. Every condition. And there it was. A detail I had missed months earlier. $500,000. Standard payout. But accidental death? 1 million. I stared at the number. $1 million. Suddenly everything clicked. The headaches. The dizziness. The poisoning. The timing. The lies. The debt. The insurance. It all fit together. Perfectly. Ryan didn't need a divorce. He needed a payout. A dead wife solved every problem. No debt. No collectors. No consequences. Just money. My money. My life converted into a financial transaction. I felt physically sick. Not because of fear. Because of betrayal. How do you process something like that? How do you accept that the person who promised to protect you has calculated your death like a business deal? The answer is simple. You don't. You survive first. You process later. My phone rang. Jason. My brother. For 2 years we hadn't spoken much. A stupid argument. Family drama. Brid. The kind of nonsense that feels important until real tragedy appears. I answered immediately. Tell me you have something. His voice sounded serious. Ido. My heart pounded. What is it? A pause. Then 4 words. Digitalis. High concentration. I closed my eyes. The confirmation hit harder than I expected. Even though I already knew. Even though I had seen Ryan's reaction. Hearing it made everything real. Digitalis. Poison. Attempted murder. Fact. Not suspicion. Fact. Jason continued speaking. In therapeutic doses, it treats heart conditions. My throat tightened. And in large doses? It can absolutely kill someone. I leaned against the desk. The room spinning slightly. Can you prove it was intentional? Another pause. Then. Bryn, the amount found in that soup wasn't accidental. I felt ice spread through my chest. Someone deliberately put it there. There was no other explanation. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, Jason broke the silence. You need to go to the police. I looked at the insurance documents, the debt records, the threats, the puzzle pieces. No. What? Not yet. His voice sharpened. Bryn, this is attempted murder. I know. Then call them. I stared at the evidence, at the numbers, at Ryan's lies, and something inside me settled. A cold certainty. The same certainty Ryan had probably felt when he planned my death. I'm not finished. Jason sighed heavily. Bryn. I need more. What more do you need? A confession. Silence. Then. You're taking a huge risk. I know. The truth was terrifying. Because Jason was right. I was taking a risk. Every minute Ryan remained free was dangerous. But I also knew something else. Without direct proof, his lawyers would create doubt. They'd attack evidence. Attack procedure. Attack credibility. I wanted something undeniable. Something that would destroy every defense before it started. And to get that, I needed Ryan to make another mistake. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A text arrived that afternoon. From Ryan. Mom's being released today. Can you pick up her prescriptions? I stared at the message. Then at the toxicology report. Then back at the message. Slowly. An idea formed. Because if digitalis came from somewhere, it had to come from somewhere specific. And Ryan had just handed me the answer. The prescription list arrived moments later. 3 medications. One of them made my stomach drop. Digitalis. There it was. Hidden in plain sight. The source. The weapon. The poison. Ryan hadn't bought anything illegal. Hadn't tracked down obscure chemicals. He'd simply stolen medication from his own mother. Crushed it. Measured it. Fed it to me. Month after month. Building toward the final dose. The realization made my skin crawl. Not because it was clever. Because it was personal. Intimate. Patient. He hadn't snapped. He hadn't lost control. He had planned. Carefully. Methodically. And now, I was planning too. The difference? I wasn't planning a murder. I was planning an ending. And before this was over, Ryan Caldwell was going to destroy himself. The moment I saw digitalis on the prescription list, every remaining piece of doubt disappeared. Not suspicion. Not theory. Not intuition. Truth. Cold, ugly truth. My husband had been poisoning me. Slowly. Patiently. Carefully. For months. And now I knew exactly where he had been getting it. I should have gone straight to the police. Maybe that would have been the smart thing. Maybe it would have been the safe thing. But there was one problem. I'd spent the last several days learning who Ryan really was. And people like Ryan didn't stop when cornered. They adapted. They lied. They manipulated. They found new angles, new victims, new opportunities. If this became a courtroom battle, I wanted more than enough evidence. I wanted certainty. I wanted something no jury could ignore. Most importantly, I wanted him to expose himself. Because narcissists always think they're the smartest person in the room. Eventually they get arrogant. Eventually they make mistakes. And Ryan was already making them. That afternoon I picked up his mother's prescriptions exactly as requested. The pharmacy sat across town. I remember standing in line feeling detached from reality. People around me discussed errands, work, weekend plans, normal life. Meanwhile, I was carrying evidence connected to an attempted murder. The contrast felt surreal. By the time I arrived at his parents' house, my nerves had settled into something colder. Focus. Pure focus. Ryan answered the door. The moment our eyes met, I felt it. Something had changed. Subtle. Almost invisible. But it was there. His smile seemed tighter. His gaze lingered longer. Like he was studying me. Trying to determine whether I knew more than I should. Thanks for getting those. He took the pharmacy bag. I smiled. Of course. For several seconds neither of us looked away. Two people pretending. Two people lying. Two people waiting for the other to blink first. Then his mother called from the living room. And the moment passed. Or at least it appeared to. The rest of the afternoon unfolded normally. At least on the surface. His father watched television. Michelle stopped by briefly. The grandchildren played in the backyard. The entire family moved through their routines. Completely unaware that a monster sat among them. But I was watching. Every movement. Every expression. Every opportunity. Then one finally appeared. Ryan picked up the prescription bag. I'll put these away. Simple words. Normal words. Except now I understood their importance. I waited. Counted silently. 1, 2, 3. 30 seconds. Then I followed. Quietly. Slowly. Upstairs. His parents' bathroom door was partially open. I heard movement inside. Cabinet doors opening. Pill bottles clicking. Something shifting across the countertop. Then another sound. A sound I recognized immediately. Grinding. Crushing. My pulse exploded. I pulled out my phone. Opened the recording app. Pressed record. And stepped forward. The bathroom scene looked exactly like my worst fears. Ryan stood at the counter. A mortar and pestle in his hands. White powder inside. Crushed medication spread nearby. For a second neither of us spoke. The silence stretched. Heavy. Dangerous. Then I broke it. What are you doing? Ryan froze. His expression changed instantly. Like a switch flipping. First surprise. Then calculation. Then a smile. I'm organizing Mom's medication. I glanced at the crushed powder. With a mortar and pestle? His smile weakened. Some pills are easier to swallow crushed. Lie. We both knew it. The air in the room suddenly felt electric. Like a thunderstorm moments before lightning strikes. I took another step forward. That's not what you're doing. Ryan stared at me. Neither of us pretending anymore. The masks were finally gone. And what I saw underneath chilled me. Because there was no panic. No guilt. No shame. Only annoyance. The annoyance of a man whose plan had been interrupted. You know. The words weren't a question. I nodded slowly. I know. His shoulders relaxed. Not because he felt safe. Because he realized hiding was pointless. A strange calm settled over him. How much? Enough. The soup? Tested. His jaw tightened. The digitalis? Confirmed. For several seconds the room remained silent. Then Ryan laughed. Actually laughed. A short, bitter laugh. And that's when I truly understood who he was. Normal people panic when they're caught. Ryan evaluated, calculated, adjusted, like a businessman reviewing numbers. You can't prove everything. I lifted my phone slightly. The recording light glowed. His eyes followed the movement. Maybe not everything. The smile vanished. Then something darker appeared. Something I'd never seen before. Pure hostility. You should have eaten the soup. The sentence landed like a physical blow. Not anger. Not frustration. Fact. He was stating it as simply as someone discussing the weather. You should have eaten the soup. My stomach twisted. Because in that moment I realized something horrifying. Ryan had already justified my death. Inside his head, I wasn't a person anymore. I was an obstacle. A financial solution. An insurance payout. Nothing more. He took a step toward me. Then another. The bathroom suddenly felt much smaller. My grip tightened around the phone. You've always been smarter than people thought. His voice remained calm. Almost conversational. But not smart enough. The distance between us shrank. Every instinct screamed danger. I backed toward the hallway. Ryan kept advancing. The expression in his eyes had changed completely. No worms. No humanity. Just cold intent. Then he lunged. Everything happened at once. His hand grabbed my wrist. Pain shot through my arm. The phone flew from my fingers, clattering across the floor. I hit the wall hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. Ryan moved fast. Faster than I'd ever seen. Years of hidden rage exploding outward. You ruined everything. The words came through clenched teeth. His hands wrapped around my throat. Pressure. Immediate. Crushing. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't fight properly. The world narrowed. The edges of my vision darkened. Somewhere far away I heard my own heartbeat. Rapid. Panicked. Desperate. Ryan's face hovered inches away. Twisted with fury. Not fear. Not regret. Fury. Because his plan had failed. Because I had survived. Because I refused to die quietly. Black spots danced across my vision. My lungs burned. And then, a voice. Sharp. Terrified. Disbelieving. Ryan. The pressure vanished instantly. Air exploded into my lungs. I collapsed against the wall coughing. Gasping. Trying to breathe. Trying to stay conscious. Ryan turned. His mother stood in the doorway. White as a ghost. Behind her stood his father. Both frozen. Both staring. Both finally seeing the truth. The silence that followed felt endless. His mother looked from Ryan. To me. To the crushed pills. To the phone still recording on the floor. And suddenly everything clicked. I watched understanding break her heart. Right there. In real time. No. The whisper barely escaped her lips. No. Tears filled her eyes. Ryan stepped forward. Mom. She recoiled. Actually recoiled. Like touching him would burn her. You poisoned her. Her voice cracked. The realization shattered her. You poisoned your wife. Ryan opened his mouth. Searching for a lie. For an explanation. For anything. But, for the first time in his life, there wasn't one. Then came the final blow. His mother's gaze shifted to the crushed pills. Then to her prescription bottles. Then back to him. And her face crumpled. You poisoned me. The room went silent. Absolute silence. The kind that follows catastrophic truth. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. His mother started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. The sound was worse. Because it wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. The heartbreak of a parent realizing they never truly knew their child. Then his father spoke. What have you done? Ryan looked around the room. Cornered. Exposed. Finished. And he knew it. For the first time all day, I finally saw fear. Real fear. Then he ran. Literally ran. Down the hallway. Past his parents. Down the stairs. Out the front door. Gone. His father immediately grabbed his phone, calling 911. His mother collapsed into a chair sobbing. And I stood there shaking. Not from fear anymore. From relief. Because it was finally over. Or at least the worst part was. The police arrived within minutes. I handed over everything. The recording. The toxicology report. The soup samples. The insurance documents. The debt records. Every piece. Every file. Every secret. By sunset, investigators had enough evidence to build a mountain. 3 hours later they found Ryan trying to flee. Apparently he'd packed cash. Fake explanations. And a suitcase. But running doesn't work when evidence moves faster than you. He was arrested before midnight. The trial began months later. And it became local news almost immediately. Because people love shocking stories. Especially stories involving betrayal. A husband poisoning his wife for insurance money. A mother accidentally becoming the victim. The headlines practically wrote themselves. During the trial, I learned even more. Investigators found traces of digitalis in my medical records going back months. Blood tests. Doctor visits. Symptoms. Everything aligned. The headaches. The dizziness. The fatigue. The nausea. He'd been slowly poisoning me. Carefully increasing the dosage. Preparing my body for the final attack. Preparing my death certificate. Preparing his payday. The jury heard it all. Every detail. Every lie. Every piece of evidence. Ryan's attorney fought aggressively. Tried attacking my credibility. Tried questioning procedures. Tried suggesting alternative explanations. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. The recording alone was devastating. But combined with toxicology reports, financial motives, insurance policies, medical records, the outcome became inevitable. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Then returned. Guilty. Attempted murder. Attempted murder. Multiple counts. Additional charges. Everything. I sat in that courtroom feeling strangely empty. Not triumphant. Not joyful. Just exhausted. Years of trust had died. Months of fear had ended. And now only reality remained. When the judge announced the sentence. 25 years to life. Ryan finally looked at me. No apology. No remorse. No regret. Just resentment. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was angry that he failed. The guards led him away. And that was the last time I ever saw him. Afterward, his mother approached me. She looked older. Smaller somehow. Like the trial had stolen years from her. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry. I shook my head immediately. You didn't do this. I should have known. You couldn't have. She hugged me. And for the first time in months, I cried. Really cried. Not from fear. Not from anger. From release. Because survival has a cost. And sometimes the bill arrives later. A year has passed since then. New city. New apartment. New job. New life. Some scars never disappear. Trust isn't something that magically returns. Some nights I still wake up remembering that dinner table. That bowl of soup. That single moment when I saw his fingers open. And every time I think about it, I come back to one truth. People call me lucky. They say I survived because fate intervened. Because his mother walked in. Because things happened exactly right. Maybe. But I don't think that's the whole story. Because survival began long before that. It began the second I trusted my instincts. The second I believed what I saw. The second I stopped doubting myself. One decision. One moment. One choice. That's what saved my life. Not luck. Not fate. Not chance. Just the refusal to ignore the truth when it finally revealed itself. And sometimes, that's the most powerful revenge of all. The moment someone tries to destroy you and fails because you were paying attention. Ryan wanted money. He wanted control. He wanted an easy solution to his problems. Instead, he lost everything. His freedom, his reputation, his family, his future, and the life he tried to take? That life kept going. Mine. The greatest revenge wasn't watching him go to prison. It was surviving, living, moving forward, and proving that his plan never got to decide how my story ended. If you made it to the end of this story, let me know in the comments. What would you have done if you saw someone slip something into your food? And if you enjoy revenge stories where justice actually wins, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, stay safe, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power of paying attention.